years longer than he said he did. The Boston Globe reports that Bain Capital continued to list Mitt Romney as the firm's sole stockholder, chairman of the board, chief executive officer, and president for 3 years after Mitt Romney claims he left Bain. The date Romney left Bain is the linchpin of his entire defense against the Obama campaign's attacks on Romney as a pioneer of outsourcing.
I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
President Romney's first 100 days, creating thousands of new jobs for Virginians.
But would he? The Washington Post has just revealed that Romney's companies were pioneers in shipping U.S. jobs overseas, investing in firms that specialized in relocating jobs done by American workers to new facilities in low-wage countries like China and India. Does Virginia really want an outsourcer-in-chief in the White House?
Mitt Romney, who gleefully sends his money offshore to Switzerland and the Cayman Islands, claims he would never send jobs offshore, had nothing to do with sending jobs offshore because he was no longer at Bain when they became the pioneers of outsourcing, the proud pioneers of outsourcing. And today, the Romney campaign decided to fight the Obama campaign charges of outsourcing with an ad saying basically to President Obama, once again, I know you are, but what am I?
I'm Mitt Romney, and I approve this message.
When a president doesn't tell the truth, how can we trust him to lead? The Obama outsourcing attacks, misleading, unfair, and untrue. There was no evidence that Mitt Romney shipped jobs overseas. Candidate Obama lied about Hillary Clinton.
So shame on you, Barack Obama.
But America expects more from a president. Obama's dishonest campaign, another reason America has lost confidence in Barack Obama.
On a Romney campaign conference call on Monday, they told the press this was coming. The campaign staff said they were fed up with the outsourcing attacks on Romney and planned to go on TV to call the president a liar. And as we've just seen, they chose to call the president a liar by hiding behind Hillary Clinton in the 2008 campaign, who never said the president lied. What Hillary Clinton was talking about in that clip, in the Romney ad, is the political argument she was then having with candidate Obama over, of all things, the individual mandate in her health care reform plan. At that time, candidate Obama disagreed with Hillary Clinton and Mitt Romney on the need for an individual mandate in health care reform, and since then, of course, President Obama adopted the Romney-Clinton mandate as part of his own approach to health care reform. Joining me now is Cal Borchers, one of the Boston Globe reporters who wrote this story today. And for the hour, we're joined by MSNBC's Alex Wagner, Crystal Ball, Steve Kornacki, and Richard Wolff. Cal, tell us what you found about Mitt Romney's exit date from Bain.
Well, what we found, Lawrence, is that the documents that Mitt Romney filed with the State Ethics Commission here in Massachusetts, combined with some SEC filings by Bain Capital, put him, as you noted, as the sole stockholder, chairman of the board, 100% owner, president, CEO, etc. of Bain Capital, all the way up until 2002, which is quite a bit later than his stated exit date of February of 1999.
And Cal, one of the things in the Ethics Committee filings indicate that he was getting a salary from Bain, and the brackets that are indicated on that form simply indicate that the salary was above $100,000. Do you have any idea what the salary actually was?
We don't, Lawrence. You're only required to report a range, so it says over $100,000. It could be any amount beyond that. We know that it was quite a bit more than that in total coming in from Bain, because this money is separate from the capital gains he earned on the investments that he had through Bain. Those are passive investments. That's been the contention that he has. But what's interesting is that that money, the $100,000 at least that came in, was for being an executive at Bain, and that was in 2001 and 2002. And those are not noted as passive, so that's a big distinction to make.
Yeah, the executive salary is for doing a job. Alex Wagner?
Cal, I wonder, there seem to be two things in play. One is the issue of Mitt Romney's integrity and whether or not he's misled the American people, but the other, of course, is the SEC. I mean, if Mitt Romney is misleading the SEC in terms of his involvement with the company, what are the repercussions there? I mean, could this be a criminal charge?
I'm told that that's not likely, Alex, at least not with the SEC. I'm not an attorney, so I'll leave it to them. But one thing that you might hear from Roberta Carmel in the next segment, and I chatted with her yesterday, is that if an investor, say, looks at those SEC filings and see Mitt Romney on there as the man in charge, and they know his reputation as a very good private equity fund manager, and let's say they invest because they have confidence in Mitt Romney, and then they learn after the fact that he really had nothing to do with what was going on at Bain Capital at the time, they might be upset by that. They might feel as though they were, sort of defrauded in a way, and it could be the source of a civil suit against Mitt Romney. So that would not be of a criminal nature, but it certainly could get him in trouble. The flip side of that would be possible problems with what he told the Office of Government Ethics on the June 1st filing he filed just this year, in which he stated that he left Bain Capital in February of 1999. If some firm evidence emerges that he was indeed active after February of 99, that could mean that he made a false statement to OGE, and that could possibly have criminal implications. But it's important to note there's no firm evidence of that just yet, and so we want to be very cautious before we make any really serious allegations like that.
Callum, this is Richard Wolf. There is an intriguing quote in your story from an anonymous Romney advisor trying to reconcile the public position of the campaign that Romney was some kind of inactive manager with these statements that he was CEO and president and chairman and everything else. And the quote says something like, "This doesn't really square with common sense." Now, that seems to me a huge admission. When you were having these conversations, and I understand this was with an anonymous Romney advisor, but was the tone there, "You've got us here"? Was the tone there, "There's something that I cannot fully explain to you because there's stuff we need to keep back"? Can you just sort of flesh that out a bit more for us?
Sure. No, the tone was not a gotcha. It was in the context of pointing out that, look, obviously the documents say what they say, and the Romney campaign is not disputing the veracity of these documents. So the official was pointing out that, look, the documents indicate that he was the man in charge, but that wasn't actually the case, and that doesn't seem to square with common sense. The argument is that there were some Bain Capital entities that were formed before February of 99. It would have been some hassle, we're told, to restructure those business entities after the fact. So Mitt Romney was just asked to continue to sign some documents on their behalf after that. For the sake of convenience, it would also show stability. The problem with that explanation, however, is we found 5 Bain Capital business entities that were not incorporated until January of 2002, and those are mentioned in SEC filings as also being under Mitt Romney's managerial control. And so the so-called legacy signatory issues that might apply to earlier documents could not possibly apply to these later business entities.
I'm just thinking here about Mitt Romney's sort of political and business career tracks. I'm trying to figure out what motive he would have had to list this for those 3 years. And what's occurring to me is, he ran for the Senate in Massachusetts in 1994, went back to Bain after losing, then went out to do
and at that point he claimed to take a leave of absence from Bain for that campaign.
Right.
Never did anything formal.
And returned afterwards, but clearly had the political ambition. And then goes out to the Olympics in 1999. And we think of the story about the Olympics ended and he went and ran for governor of Massachusetts. The thing that strikes me is the opportunity to run for governor of Massachusetts really did not come up until the very end of that Olympic tenure, because there was a Republican governor. There was Cellucci at first, then it was Jane Swift, and Jane Swift didn't really implode till the final few months of the Olympics. So I'm wondering, I asked Cal, is it your impression that maybe Romney's plan or his intention, or at least the option he wanted, was to just finish the Olympics and come back to Bain and wait till some indeterminate point in the future to run for office?
Yeah, in fact, that's not really my impression, to be honest with you. It's stated by Mitt Romney in 2002. Remember, there was this sort of a lost footnote, but when Romney ran for governor in 2002, there was some question about whether he was even eligible to hold the office because he had been living and working in Utah for a few years. And so when he testified before the State Ballot Commission that was going to make that determination, one of the defenses he used was that he had taken a leave of absence from Bain Capital and that he intended to return after the Olympics. Those are his words. That's not an interpretation. And so obviously that didn't end up being the case. He never went back to Bain. He ended up running for governor instead. But as late as 2002, we have him asserting that this was not a firm resignation. It was a leave of absence. And we have him also telling us that he had planned to come back.
And Cal, was he filing Massachusetts tax returns when he was running the Olympics?
He was filing out of Utah at the time. That was one of the reasons why there was some dispute about whether he should be allowed to run for governor in Massachusetts in the first place. I believe the calculation at the time was that he had saved $54,000 by filing in Utah instead of Massachusetts.
Right.
He agreed to repay that sum and make up the difference.
So, Callan, for how long has Mitt Romney been asserting that he left Bain in 1999 and had no further involvement with them?
Well, it really began in that run for governor in 2002. A few weeks before Election Day that year, Shannon O'Brien, who was his Democratic opponent that year, began running a TV commercial that featured GST Steel. That's this very same steel manufacturer that the Obama campaign has used in ads this year. And again, the argument was, look, this company went under, Bain reaped a huge profit, there were layoffs, etc. But that, layoffs and bankruptcy didn't happen until February of 2001. And so at the time, the defense from Mitt Romney and from Bain Capital was, look, he's not responsible for this because he was gone. He was managing the Olympics. But the fact of the matter is that at least on paper, he was still very much the man in charge.
Cal, your story forced a reaction from Bain Capital today, and I just want to read that statement and get your reaction to it quickly before you go. Their statement is, Mitt Romney left Bain Capital in February 1999 to run the Olympics and has had absolutely no involvement with the management or investment activities of the firm or with any of its portfolio companies since the day of his departure. Due to the sudden nature of Mr. Romney's departure, he remained the sole stockholder for a time while formal ownership was being documented and transferred to the group of partners who took over management of the firm in 1999. Accordingly, Mr. Romney was reported in various capacities on SEC filings during this period.
Well, there's a lot of material there. One thing to remember is that it was a very sudden transition. And I don't think anybody is suggesting that Mitt Romney was actually managing the day-to-day operations of Bain while he was running the Olympics. It's pretty well documented that he was a busy man out in Utah. But the question is that since he didn't have that severance agreement finalized until 2002, 3 years after he actually left, since he told the ballot commission that it was only a leave of absence and that he planned to come back, he retained sole ownership of the company. He remained in all of those title positions, and he continued to draw a salary. Is it reasonable to believe that he had absolutely nothing to do, no influence in any way at all, on any Bain Capital entities after February of 1999? That's the position of Bain Capital and the Romney campaign, and that's the question.
Well, we have an official ruling on it. I have just ruled that it is unreasonable to believe that. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back with more. Coming up, an exclusive with former SEC Commissioner on the Bain filings, and David Corners here with new information about Mitt Romney and outsourcing jobs to China.